I do have a lot to get through today because this is a topic that I get asked about a lot as a chiropractor, both within my practice and also outside of my practice. And often I get asked about it in the middle of practice, and people want me to give them the sort of complete answer, and I feel like it's really hard to give the complete answer in that sort of time frame because there is so much stuff that we can talk about in terms of exercises for good posture. So that's why I wanted to record this as a bit of an evergreen video so that I can refer people back to this one, and also so that you guys can come on board and you can join me and ask questions and make it really nice and interactive too. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, all of these videos go into my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. Now, I will put some links into the chat here for my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and also for my YouTube channel, because the videos do go to both of those places. The best spot to look at them is in the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, because if you've got questions that you want to ask me, that's the best place to go. All right, so I'm going to be going through all of this today. I ummed and ahed about how to do this today because I wanted to be able to sort of demonstrate and show you some of these exercises, which is really hard because they're sort of all in different postures and positions. And so I decided that I'm actually just going to explain them to you as best I can, just facing the camera like this. However, if you have any questions about any specific exercises, if there's anything you're not quite sure on, anything you don't quite understand, the best spot to go is to my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and ask me the question there. And I will either find a blog or a video that really aptly describes the exercise I'm talking about so you can see it, or if I can't find one, I'll make one for you and I'll make a little video just to describe exactly how to do that particular exercise. Hello Donna, how are you? Oh, and hello to here. I'm trying to keep up now. I've got all these people saying hello, which is lovely. So the links are there, as I said, for the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, and also for my YouTube channel. So if you've got questions at the end, obviously any questions you've got along the way tonight, you can ask them of me. But if at the end there are questions or you want something described or demonstrated, then let me know in the group and I will make sure that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's talk a bit about posture. Obviously, once again, as a chiropractor, it's something I talk about a lot. And unfortunately, in our modern society, we see a lot of poor posture. A lot of that is to do with the amount that we sit. We just flat out sit more than our bodies are designed to. And that's as a result of, I guess, our modern world, whether we be at work, whether we be traveling in the car, whether we're sitting on the couch at the end of the day, watching TV, or nowadays even worse, often watching Netflix on a tablet or a laptop or something like that. And those are all really stressful for our spines and our nervous systems and really detrimental to our posture. And so those repeated activities and just the sedentary nature of our lives mean that posture is a real pandemic. In fact, some of the research now would suggest that sitting is worse than smoking for our bodies, which is quite an extraordinary statement, but one that has been repeated quite a lot and seemingly shown in the research. So yes, Wendy says the last 2 years has ruined my posture. Yeah, and I would guess, Wendy, that is the truth for a lot of people. The last 2 years, over the course of the pandemic, people have, I think, been a lot more sedentary, sometimes forcibly a lot more sedentary than they would have been in the previous 2 years. And I think that has had a detrimental effect on a lot of people's postures. So, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is stuff that you can do, even if we were to get locked down again, which God pray we don't. But even if we were, a lot of it is stuff you can do, simple things you can do in your home with minimal equipment to try and make it really easy for you. All right. So and Tahir says, working from home. So if you're working from home, these are still going to work for you. I'm really lucky at my home. I have a pretty well set up garage gym. We live in the hills. We've got a bit more space and a bit more land and a nice big shed, and so we can do that. But I've been very conscious of trying to make all of these things that I recommend so that they are a lot more applicable to anyone, anywhere. One of my favourite apps that I will often recommend to people in terms of exercise, and quite a few of the exercises that I'll talk about today are in this app. But there's an app called You Are Your Own Gym, or Bodyweight, I think it's called if you've got an Apple, and that shows bodyweight exercises, a huge variety of bodyweight exercises that you can do anywhere with almost no equipment. and it's a great little app, and it'll create a workout for you. It'll show you pictures and videos of each of the movements, and it will time the workout for you. Just do the whole lot, which is and scale the workout based on your self-determined level of fitness. And so that's a really good one to do. So I'm mindful of that. Look, a lot of the stuff that I learned from that app about how we can modify things and do it really well for people wherever you are, no matter your equipment, even if you're traveling and you're on the road, it's stuff that you can do. All right, but let's talk a bit about posture. You know, that poor posture that we see more and more commonly in our society, and often more and more in our younger kids, at younger and younger ages, is really starting to have an impact. And we see that obviously in terms of things like pain and mobility, but also we see that in terms of the dysfunction it's causing to people's spines and nervous systems. That obviously causes accelerated degeneration in people's spines and nervous systems, but it also creates nerve interference. And when we understand that nervous system controls every cell, tissue and organ in your body, then we start to understand that this nerve interference can affect our body in a vast array of ways. All right, and so I'm gonna write in the comments here the name of the app, because it is called on Android. It is called You Are Your Own Gym. So I've had a few people asking this, so I'm just going to put it in there. Or it's called Body Weight. If you're having trouble finding it, it's by a guy called Mark Loren. And so if you look up his name, you'll find it. And it's a really cool little app. Someone has asked if it's a free app. It's not a free app, but it's really cheap. I haven't downloaded it for a while, so it may have gone up a little bit, but honestly, it was always ridiculously cheap for the amount of value that you get from it. So I've, over the years, recommended it to many practice members, and they've all loved it and used it at various different levels, but no one has ever complained that it was too expensive. That is absolutely for sure, because it is actually, for what it is, it's incredibly good value. So you guys can check that one out. But yes, impacts on the spine and the nervous system, impacts on general health. We know that posture has been shown to have real impacts on your digestion. We know that posture has been shown to have real impacts on your breathing. And I think that is both in terms of just purely biomechanically, mechanically in terms of the amount of space that is there for those important organs to work, in terms of alignment so that those organs are able to work at their best, but also in terms of the neurological control of those organs, which gets impeded by a dysfunctional spine and nervous system. Hello, Lana, how are you? So that's some of the impacts of posture. I would be here all night if I really wanted to talk about all of the impacts on your health of posture, because they are really just so many. But I think you get the idea. Posture is really important, and I'm guessing from the fact that you're here that you already understand that posture is really important, so that's great. And of course, in terms of posture, prevention is better than the cure, right? And so whilst a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight is how to sort of get your posture back on track, because the assumption I'm making is that your posture isn't perfect, because almost nobody in our modern society has perfect posture. I can tell you as a chiropractor, it's not very often someone comes in and I look at their spine and their nervous system, I look at their x-rays, I take a postural photo and analyze it and say, hey, your posture's great, there's nothing to do here, right? That almost never happens, unfortunately. So I'm going to assume that there's some work to be done. However, it is always better to prevent rather than cure in terms of posture. So, particularly this probably relates to your kids, but also I think just for you guys to be mindful of, posture is a bit like brushing your teeth, right? You don't wait until you've got cavities to start brushing your teeth. You shouldn't wait until your posture's deteriorated and you're hunched over and you've got degeneration and you've got osteoporosis and all those sort of things before you start to be mindful of your posture. So the first step of that really is just being mindful, is just paying attention, is having a look at your posture. One of the things we do in our practice is we use a particular app to take photos of people, to measure and to analyze their posture, to show them exactly what's going on. And so I would encourage all of you to see your local chiropractor and get them to do an analysis of your posture, because that'll give you a lot of that sort of mindfulness about exactly what's going on and what you need to change and improve. Okay, so obviously if you're in my area, you can come and see us at Healthy Choices Chiropractic. And if you're not in my area, then once again, head into the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, let me know where you are, And I would love to help you find a great chiropractor in your area. We do that for people all the time, all over the world. I've got lots of great contacts all over the world as a result of a lot of the work I've done over the years and speaking internationally and all those sort of things. So I can certainly help you out. I've got lots of good contacts. So being mindful of your posture is number one. Right, making sure when you are sitting, because we are all going to be sitting. I'm sitting today. I have been for most of the day today. I have stopped to do some exercise today. I have stopped to do some mobility work today and some foam rolling and things like that. But for a large proportion of the day, I have been sitting down. But I'm mindful of it, right? So my desk, and if you head to my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group or my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see a video there on how to set up your desk. But my desk is set up so that I've got my laptop up high, right? So my laptop is actually up on a stand so that the middle of my screen is level with my eyes. My keyboard is down low so it's level with my elbows. So I can sit up nice and straight and I'm not going to fade and come down, right? So all of that desk ergonomic stuff, the same in your car. Get your seat nice and upright, sit up in great posture, and then adjust all your mirrors, right? And that's going to help you stay nice and upright in your car, because as soon as you start to slouch, you won't be able to see in the mirror. And every time you look in the mirror, you're going to get a nice little reminder, right? But obviously being mindful of then how you sit on the couch, right? How you lie if you're watching TV in bed, how you sit in all the different ways that you sit and sleep in your life. So sleep is also obviously really important. Having a good, firm, supportive mattress, having a pillow that allows your head to stay in a nice neutral position. These are all really important things in terms of preventing postural problems. Obviously making sure that you are moving with good posture. So posture is not just static posture, it's mobile posture as well. It's about once you start, so if you stand perfectly straight, but as soon as you start to walk, you lose that, or as soon as you start to lift something, you lose that, then you're still not preventing the problem. And in fact, you might be creating some great strength and stability that's reinforcing a bad posture. So you need to be able to do that as you move. You need to be mindful of your stress. We all know what a stressed person looks like versus a non-stressed person, right? Someone who's relaxed tends to be more open and upright. Someone who's stressed tends to be more closed in and hunched over. We just know that intuitively, and we know that about ourselves, and that has a real impact on your posture as well. So once again, there's so many different areas I could go into in terms of this talk today. I'm just glossing over them, and I fully recognize that. If you've got more questions about any of these particular parts, then definitely let me know inside that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, and I'll endeavour to help you out. And if there's any of these that you'd like me to expand upon and do a full 1 hour mentoring session on, then let me know, right? And so one of those that I'm planning on doing that on at some stage over the next few months is on footwear, is on barefoot walking or barefoot exercise, and also on toe spaces, which if you follow me on social media, Instagram or Facebook as Dr. Brett Hill, you may have seen that over the last probably 4 or 5 months I've been experimenting with toe spaces. However, the main point I want to talk about here in terms of posture is that your footwear really affects your posture. The biggest impact your footwear has on your posture, there's lots of other things we can talk about in terms of barefoot shoes and muscular strength and alignment and those sort of things, but the biggest thing that's going to make an impact is the difference in the heel height of your shoes under your heel versus under your forefoot. And so obviously high heels is a big example of that, but most modern sneakers, most modern shoes have a higher raised heel than a forefoot. That lifts that heel up. It tends to cause an anterior pelvic tilt. It tends to exaggerate the lumbar curve and then cause us to round forward in our upper back as well. Essentially, it does almost all of the same things that sitting does in terms of disrupting our posture. Okay, so that's another thing we want to be mindful of. All right. Body composition is another thing, all right? So obviously, depending on your body composition, depending on your weight, then you may be putting more or less load on your spine, and that then means that all of those distortions that we're seeing may be getting exaggerated, right? The weight that's been pulling on that distorted posture is going to be exaggerating that even more. So, I don't think weight is the biggest one you need to be worried about in this situation. I see many people who do have a great functioning spine, a great functioning nervous system, a great posture, and really the weight doesn't make that much difference. You know, I see other people who come in to see me and their spine and their posture is just all over the place, and they say, oh, well, someone told me it's because I'm a bit overweight, that must be the problem. And I say to them, well, look, you know what? If the weight was the problem, then every single person who was your weight would have that exact same problem, right? The problem isn't generally the weight. The problem is that your spine and your posture isn't how it should be, and so you're not able to carry that weight as well as you should, right? So it's a factor, but it's not the biggest factor, okay? And then diet, right? So diet's really important, and often rarely spoken about in terms of your posture, but you know, your posture is heavily reliant on the health of your bones, on the health of your ligaments and connective tissues, and on the health of your muscles, okay? So things like making sure you're getting enough magnesium, which is really important for your muscles to relax, which is really important for your nervous system to relax, right? So getting lots of leafy greens, eating lots of nuts is a great way to make sure you're getting enough magnesium in, all right? Things like calcium, obviously, for your bones, and you know, we all know that the prevailing view is that dairy is the best way to get calcium. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that things like bony fish and leafy greens are probably the best, most biologically available way to get calcium into your body and to keep calcium in your body, which is even more important. So, you know, I think that, but regardless, calcium is one important factor. It's not the be-all and end-all that it's made out to be. There's lots of other factors that are equally important, such as vitamin D, right? And so vitamin D, making sure you're getting lots of great sunshine, which, you know, as we spoke about with the lockdowns, you know, some of us haven't been getting as much of that over the last couple of years either. But making sure you're getting enough sunshine, you know, 20 minutes of good quality sunshine on as much of your skin as possible each day is really what we need in order to produce that vitamin D, and making sure we've got lots of really great healthy fats in our diet, because those are the foundations of that vitamin D as well. Making sure you're getting enough vitamin K, which is another one which is actually really important for your bones. And so the best way to get that is liver, and also from fermented foods. Okay, so vitamin K is really important. Getting collagen, which of course is really important for your ligaments and your connective tissues. And so things like broth, gelatin, just nose to tail eating, you know, eating the cuts of meat that are perhaps a bit more gristly that we wouldn't necessarily always eat. Eating those too, you know, slow cooking them, they can be absolutely delicious in stews and all sorts of different soups and all sorts of things. But those do contain more of the collagen, which is really good for our joints and our ligaments. Make sure you're getting enough good quality protein. The best way to get you know, a broad spectrum of the amino acids that you need is animal products. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You can still do it eating a vegetarian diet. You just need to be much more particular about what you're having and how you're combining them so that you still get that broad spectrum of amino acids. And having enough water, making sure your body is really well hydrated. It's super important for your spine and your nervous system, for your muscles, for your ligaments, for all of those things, right? Just think about the discs in your spine. They're like these fluid-filled sacs that provide the shock absorbency between your bones, and hydration for those is really important, which is, you know, one of the reasons why smoking is so detrimental for your spine and your nervous system, and detrimental for your posture, is that it really dehydrates you, right? So making sure that you're getting enough water, making sure you're not smoking, making sure you're, you know, moderating the amount of coffee and alcohol you're consuming, because obviously they're both diuretics and can dry you out as well, is really important. All right, so those are some of the preventative tips in terms of looking after your posture that I want you to be mindful of. I am getting towards the exercises, I promise. As I said, as I was writing these notes today, I came up with more and more stuff that I wanted to make sure I talked to you about. So this preamble got a bit longer than I'd originally intended it to be. I hope that's okay. But let's talk then about the hierarchy of postural repair. And as I said, for most people in our society, we are talking about postural repair rather than postural maintenance, unfortunately. And so the first pillar of that, really in my mind, is segmental joint health, you know, individual joints, making sure that your spine is functioning well, making sure that each of those joints is moving well, and that we're removing the interference from the nervous system. Obviously, this is what we do all day, every day as chiropractors. And in order to do that, it needs to be really specific. You know, there are some various different exercise modalities that will talk about moving each of the joints of your spine one at a time. And the reality is that you can't control your muscles to that degree. There aren't, if you look at your pelvis, for example, there aren't any specific muscles that just cover that sacroiliac joint. So you can't just move that joint. You need some help with that. And so I always liken it to, a car that's wheels are out of alignment, and say if your car's wheels are out of alignment, then taking it for a drive, and by that in this case I mean doing postural mobility work or doing postural exercises, is likely going to cause as many problems as it solves, right? Because you're going to be then asking joints that aren't functioning well to do stuff that they're not capable of doing. You're then going to be asking other joints that are possibly moving more to compensate for those joints that aren't functioning well to do even more, and that's likely to cause problems down the track, right? So I think getting the underlying structure right, and the byproduct of that is that you then get the nervous system right? Remove the interference from the nervous system, so that your body can better control those core stabilizing muscles, and that gives you the best chance of having way more success once you start moving on to your mobility work and onto your exercise work. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I think in terms of the hierarchy of postural repair, I think the segmental joint health comes first, right? The second thing you want to work on is your mobility, and I spoke about that a lot in one of my recent videos that I did a couple of months ago in terms of what you can do on the foam roller. Right? Obviously, in terms of mobility, there's a lot of ways you can do that in terms of yoga, in terms of Pilates, in terms of mobility WODs and ROM WODs and all those sort of things that you can find on the internet now. But I like doing it on the foam roller. I find that a really effective way of doing it, and so I think that's the next thing, right? Because you need to then have that mobility. Once you've got the joints functioning well, you then need to create the mobility of those ligamentous structures around it, and that's going to give you the best chance of being able to work those muscles really effectively, okay? Because ligaments take longer to change. They need time over which to deform. And so generally what you're going to be doing with your muscles is a shorter duration. And so if you're just doing that, you may not be able to create the same sort of change in that ligamentous structure, and those ligaments might be limiting the amount that you can stretch and strengthen the muscles, if that makes sense. So I think you need to then look at the mobility second, and then the third thing that comes in is the exercises for better posture, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. So once again, if you are in that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, you're going to have all of these bases covered, because I've talked about all of these things for you in several of those videos. Once again, the link is in the chat there. In fact, I'll put it again, because I know sometimes if you come in late to this, then it's hard to go back and find those links. So those videos are, as I said, in the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and on the YouTube channel, and the best spot to ask questions is in the group. All right, so that's our hierarchy of repair. Let's get in then and talk about that third phase, which is the movement. And the first thing I want to say about this is that really any movement is better than none, right? So the first thing you need to realize is that the biggest problem in terms of our posture is really, it's just our sedentary lifestyles, okay? And so I just want to encourage you to move in whatever way works for you. Whatever you love doing, get up and do it. Whatever's going to motivate you, whatever fits in with your life purpose that you're going to be inspired to do, then start with that, right? Because whatever you do to move is going to be better than not moving. And so whether that's, I don't care, dancing, walking, fishing, sport, gym, whatever it is that gets you moving, you guys can let me know other examples of stuff that you like to do and how you like to move, right? But whatever it is that you like to do, I just want to encourage you just to move. I think that's the most important takeaway from anything I can give you to talk about your posture, is that your body's really smart, and your body's going to want to be in better posture, and your body's constantly trying to utilize the movement that you do to help you strengthen and to realign, especially, once again, if it is functioning well and free from nerve interference, so that communication between your brain and your body is getting through, then your body can really use a huge variety of movement in a really positive way, okay? So, like I said, the number one thing is just to move, and if that's all you get out of tonight, that would be great. And once again, as you are moving, then being mindful of your posture is really important, right? So we talked about that sort of dynamic posture, the posture you have when you start to move. And I see lots of people who have, walking or jogging as their movement of choice, and they may have quite good posture when they're standing still, and yet as soon as they start to move, they actually hunch over quite dramatically or bend at the waist quite dramatically. And that's not the way our bodies are designed to move. It's not the way our bodies are designed to run and walk. Okay, so once again, this is a topic maybe later on I will do a whole video on. I know some of you on this call have done a workshop with me where I've taught you running technique and felt the difference between doing it in the bent over fashion versus doing it with good posture. But what I want you to think about for the rest of you, and until I do this in more detail, is that what you want to do is try and maintain a really nice upright posture. So a straight line between the middle of your ear, the middle of your shoulder, between your hip and your ankle, staying nice and upright. And then as you start to move forward, you keep that nice upright posture and you bend from the ankles rather than bending from the waist. Okay? So you're almost leaning and you're almost falling forwards. And that allows you to maintain that really good posture as you walk and as you run. It allows you to better utilize your body weight in order to propel you forwards rather than having to try and bounce up and over your foot that you're sticking right out in front of yourself. It generally requires having a higher cadence and a shorter stride length. So you're just sort of trotting along and almost falling forwards as you go. But what that means is that as you maintain that nice straight posture as you're walking or as you're running, the whole time you're activating muscles, you're activating your postural muscles to hold you in that great position. You're teaching your muscles to hold you in good posture, as opposed to the more exercise you do bending forward at the waist, then the more you're teaching, you're training those postural muscles to hold you in a posture that bends forward at the waist. Okay, so I want you to be really mindful of that as you start moving and as you start walking and running. The second thing I want to talk about is the Straighten Up Australia app. So one of the easiest things you can do is the Straighten Up Australia routine designed by the Australian Chiropractors Association, and they've very kindly gone and created an app for you. Now I'm going to see if I can show it to you here because I do have it. I've got the brochures in my practice, and so once again, if you do have a great chiropractor, go and speak to them and they can get you one of those Straighten Up Australia brochures that you can take away with you. But honestly, if you've got a smartphone, the app is even better, all right? And so it is just called Straighten Up. This is it here, okay? And what you'll see is that actually, if I just hit start there, it goes black for a little while, which is disconcerting the first time you do it.
Stand tall. Ears, shoulders, hips.
But it then goes through and tells you exactly what to do, okay? And so the Straighten Up routine is a 3-minute routine designed specifically to help you look after your posture. Really simple stretches and movements. They're going to help maintain the structure of your spine that almost anybody can do regardless of your level of fitness. I say almost, not everybody, but almost anybody can do. Yes, thank you, Wendy. Straighten Up app. And it's a wonderful thing. It only takes about 3 minutes, doesn't require any equipment, and it's described as being like brushing your teeth but for your spine. Okay, so very often that is the first step that I will recommend to people is get the Straighten Up app and use that because that's a wonderful thing to do. However, I also think that it's probably not enough for most of us in order to maintain our health, maintain our fitness, and really create some excellent strong postural muscles, right? A bit like how we get told that 30 minutes of walking is all we need for our health, right? That may be the minimum required to make a significant impact on the risk of heart disease, but it's not all you need for your health, right? Your muscle mass is important. There's a lot of other strength, cardio, other exercises you can do that are going to make you a lot healthier than if you just do the basics, right? Once again, not saying the basics are bad, and if all you're doing is the basics, that's better than doing nothing. So start with where you're at, and then hopefully this might just give you a couple of ideas of some little things that you could add into your routine, okay? And as I move into some of these exercises, obviously be mindful that for most of you, I am not your chiropractor. I don't have visibility on what exactly is going on in your spine and your nervous system. So be careful speak to your chiropractor, right? Talk to them about which of these exercises would be most appropriate for you, which of these are going to help you get the most bang for your buck in terms of improving your posture, and just be careful. Okay, so that's my disclaimer, as I generally have to do in all of these talks. But let's talk about some exercises we can do for the upper body. Okay, so we're going to do upper body, then lower body, and then whole body. And for the most part, I'm very much a fan of doing as much whole body as we can, right? Because we're talking about postural muscles. And so the more you use your whole body when you exercise, the more you're training those postural muscles to hold you in great shape and in great position and to strengthen them, right? The example I always use for this is a bicep curl, right? And if you're at the gym, on that little preacher's curl machine, you know, isolating, stabilizing the rest of your body with the equipment and only doing your bicep, then that's probably a great way to create a really big bicep, right? Because you're isolating just that muscle. You can put all of your effort and energy into just that one muscle, and that's great if you want to have a big bicep to head to the nightclub with, right? But you're not learning to use your postural muscles. You're not learning to use your stabilizers at the same time. We know that one of the biggest injury risks is if your stabilizers, if your core doesn't switch on before your periphery, because your body's actually really clever, and actually, whenever you move your periphery, your core will actually, or should, switch on just before your arm moves. In that split second before you move your arm, your core should actually switch on first. And if it doesn't, you're at a great risk of injury. All right? And so we want to train that. We want to make sure that if you're doing biceps, I'd rather do them standing up with a dumbbell, where I have to then stabilize. Right? I have to then use my postural muscles, and I can make sure that I'm in a really good, you know, I'm not going to be hunched over doing it like this. I'm going to be in a really good posture while I do it, because then all of those stabilizers that activate, I'm going to be training them to hold my body in a good position rather than strengthening them to hold my body in a bad position. I know I'm going to say that so many times as I go through this, but that is really the fundamental of my beliefs around exercise for posture, is that almost any exercise can be a great exercise for posture, so long as you do it, so long as it's predominantly whole body, you know, functional open chain exercise, and so long as you maintain really good posture whilst you do it, okay? So, the first one of these I want to talk about is something that we talk about all the time in practice, and it is just chin tucks. It's really simple. For most people, that head is sitting forward as a result of working at a computer, sitting too much, slumping too much. And the chin tuck is simple. You just bring your chin back, and it's almost like you're trying to make a double chin, right? So you don't tilt your head up, don't tilt your head down, just bring that straight back, okay? And you can just hold that. Hold that back for a good 30 seconds, relax, do it 3 to 5 times. Now that's a really simple one that's going to build up some of that strength in your neck, right? Build up some of those posterior postural muscles. You're probably going to feel it stretching your suboccipital muscles right at the base of your skull there, because they're very often too tight, and that's a really simple one you can do. You can actually be doing that often whilst you're doing many of the other exercises we're talking about. So I know, in the Straighten Up app, they're essentially talking about you doing that chin tuck whilst you do all the other movements, and I think that's a really good way to go. The other one that's really good, or another one, I've got lots of them here, from a yoga perspective, right, they will talk about doing the cobra and the child's pose, okay? And so for those of you who know what those are, the cobra is where your hands are out in front and you're arching yourself back, right? Now, once again, speak to your chiropractor, speak to your yoga teacher about how to do that appropriately, how to do that safely, but really, you should be doing it from the hips up, right? Keeping your hips, trying to not to introduce that anterior pelvic tilt, so bringing that in, and then from the base up, you want to be curling back, and most of that action should be happening with your spinal stabilizers rather than shoving with your arms, okay? If you feel like you're having to shove with your arms, then just back off a little bit until your spine is able to make that movement happen a little bit better, okay? And so that's the cobra, and then the opposite of that is then the child's pose, where your hands are coming forward in front of you and your head's coming down through your hands, all right? So obviously the cobra is bringing that extension into your neck and that extension into your thoracic spine, right? So it's kind of the opposite of what we often do when we're sitting and hunched forward. And by the same token, the child's pose is then bringing those shoulders back, which once again, often as we hunch forward, those shoulders come in as well. So this is then bringing that extension back into those shoulders as well. So those are two really good ones to do. And the easy thing to do is to cycle between the two, right? So you can go down to the child's pose, up into the cobra, down into the cobra, down to the child's pose, up into the cobra, and you can cycle between those two. Okay. Another one that's really good, and once again, often in my practice, I'm recommending people to be doing the postural exercises that I've spoken about in other videos on the foam roller. So in terms of more the mobility work, but sometimes for my practice members who can't get down on the floor to get onto the foam roller to do some of that longer term mobility work, we get them doing this one, which is wall angels. Okay, and that is essentially just standing back against the wall with your arms out, right, and you're just bringing your arms up and down, right? And what you're trying to do is both in terms of your upper back, keep that extension in your upper back and your shoulders back against the wall, but also in your lower back. I probably could have put this into a whole body one, but this is more about the upper back. But in the lower back, you want to make sure you're tucking your pelvis under and flattening out your lower back against the wall as well. So you're actually helping to undo that anterior pelvic tilt at the same time as you're doing these wall angels up and down the wall. So trying to keep your shoulders, your elbows and your wrists all against the wall. If you're finding that too difficult, then you do the external rotations of your shoulders. So start with that. Once again, it's all about building up this strength in your back to help bring those shoulders back, to help bring some extension back into that thoracic spine. And so then all we're doing is elbows at your side and you're externally rotating your hands out towards the wall. And you're trying to keep your shoulders back and down as much as you can while you do that. And you're working on those muscles and you're almost trying to squeeze your scapula at the back together. Like imagine you're trying to pinch a coin in between your shoulder blades, okay? So you're really squeezing those together, right? So those are really good for introducing some of that extension into that upper back. Another way you can do some of that and improve that upper back mobility and shoulder mobility is one that they talk about a lot in CrossFit. It has a horrible name, which is shoulder dislocations, which sounds terrible and kind of wants to scare people off. I should have grabbed a broom to show you this. The only broomstick I've got here actually has a bowling ball attached to the end of it because I use it. In fact, I'm going to show you. This is my bowling ball. Oh, I'm going to make a mess here. This is my bowling ball that I use in practice to demonstrate to people just how much impact posture makes. Because your head weighs about the weight of a bowling ball. And so I get people to hold this up and I say, well, look, this is your head when it's in good position. And then if you let that fall forward and maybe even a bit to the side and feel just how much heavier that bowling ball becomes, it's really significant and helps give you a really good insight into how your posture affects. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do shoulder dislocations. Actually, I don't think I can do it on this one because it's probably not long enough. No. Alright, but what you want to do with the shoulder dislocations, I would use this one slightly longer because I'm not super mobile in terms of my shoulders. But you'll come right down forward to the front, and then right up over to the back and all the way over, right? And so you can also stay, no, I can't do it with that bowling ball on the end. The shoulder dislocations, passing over, passing forward, one over, the other one over, one forward, the other one forward. That's a really good mobility work to do for your shoulders and for your upper back. All right? And so that's a good one to do before you do exercise so that you're helping make sure that you have good posture for the other exercises you do. But it's also a good one that you can do just as a standalone to help increase the extension in that upper back and the mobility and the extension into those shoulders as well. So that's a really good one. The other one you can do in that regard is, once again, I spoke about this in the foam rolling workshop. Once again, if you've only just come on, that foam rolling workshop is available in the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, where the links are in the comments. And that is, once again, laying down on the foam roller, activating your core, right? So tucking under that pelvis, bringing extension into your upper back, and then holding all of that, holding your whole spine down against the foam roller whilst you bring your arms up overhead and then back down again, all right? And that's, once again, teaching your body to really activate that core. You can do that with weights if you wish, but you can actually get a pretty good workout without any weights if you're just really activating that core, really pressing your lower back against that roller, really tucking that chin and pressing your head back against the roller as well. To maintain that whilst you're moving your arms up overhead can be actually really quite challenging. So that's a really good one to do. The next one is rows, okay? And so people often think of rowing and think, well, I need a rower, I need an exercise machine to be able to do that. And in many ways, the rower isn't actually the best way to do this, okay? So it's very easy on a rowing machine, and you see so many people do it, to do it with quite poor posture, to really hunch over, to lean forward, stretching out onto that rower, and not necessarily bringing that back into good extension and good posture whilst we do it. So if you are on a rowing machine, once again, try and keep that straight line between your head and your shoulders and your hips whilst you do it. But if you don't have a rowing machine, there's other ways to do it which are actually really easy, right? So I have in my gym rings, Olympic rings, and so I can do a supine row using those, and that's really good and really effective. But you can do the same thing on your kitchen table, right? And so if you lay down under your kitchen table, so with your legs right underneath, hopefully it's a nice big stable, make sure it's a strong kitchen table before you do this, but you can lay down, you can then reach up and grab the edge of the kitchen table, and you can pull yourself up to the table. And you can row that way, all right? Now, obviously, that requires a certain amount of strength to be able to pull your body weight up in that regard. It's also really important, once again, that you keep straight the whole way through, right? So you need to be able to stabilize your shoulders, stabilize your upper back, tuck your pelvis under, keep a really straight line between the ankles, the hips, the shoulders, and the ears in order to do that, all right? If you don't have the strength to do that yet, that's okay. And you may never, that's okay too. You can then do the similar sort of thing with a resistance band, all right? And so that can either be a bent over row where you just put the resistance band under your feet and you're rowing up towards your chest, once again keeping your back nice and straight, or you might just fix it to something on the wall and you're just rowing back towards you. Once again, if you're standing up straight, make sure you're really straight. Make sure you're in great posture as you do it. Okay, so rows are really good because it really builds that strength in the rhomboids in the back between your shoulder blades, helps bring that extension back into your upper back, helps keep your shoulders back and down. And so you really focus on keeping those shoulders back and down as you do that row, and that'll really help as well. So rows are a fantastic one for helping to improve posture. The other one is pull-ups, and once again, pull-ups, you need to have a bar of some sort to do them off of, but to be honest, for most of us, you don't have to have it. You can buy a bar to have at home that just goes in your doorway, and it's really easy to fix and can hold your weight, and you can do that. If you don't have one, like I said, I've got a pretty well set up home gym. I've got heaps of pull-up bars in my home gym. But you can just go to a playground as well, and you can find a horizontal bar at most playgrounds, whether that's just a freestanding horizontal bar or whether it's the edge of the monkey bars that you can do pull-ups on, and you can buy resistance bands, and honestly you can buy them pretty cheap just from like Kmart. They don't cost much at all, and really there's not many people who can't do a pull-up if you give them enough resistance bands, right? Like you put enough strong enough bands on there, you're just about bouncing up there without doing much work at all. So, as I said, there's not many people, and I've had lots of people. I've had my elderly parents in my gym at home doing pull-ups with enough bands. They were able to do it comfortably from a very low baseline in terms of upper body strength. So, many people can do that. If you're more advanced at that, and you can start to do some of it like a kipping pull-up, where you're using the swing of your body to come up and back. That can actually be really advantageous in terms of, once again, as you kick forward into that position, you're really bringing a lot of extension into your upper back and extension into your shoulders. So that can be an added advantage in that regard as well. So that's obviously getting into some more advanced movements, depending on the level you're at. Totally up to you. You can do the others, and once again, choose. You don't have to do all of these, right? You choose the ones that you think are at your level, are going to be most appropriate for you right now. Pick one or two that are going to help bring some extension back into that upper spine, that are going to fit into your daily life, that you're going to be motivated to do, and start introducing them in. Okay. In terms of the lower body, once again, I think all of those full body movements you do, as long as you're engaging your core, as long as you're engaging your glutes to tuck that pelvis back under, and to reduce that anterior pelvic tilt that most of us have as a result of sitting too much, as a result of tight hip flexors, you can get this benefit in terms of your lower body doing just about all of the exercises I've spoken about so far. But one of the best ones you can do is glute bridges, right? So that's when you're laying flat on your back with your knees up. Okay, so feet flat on the floor, knees up, and then you're drawing your glutes up, you're drawing your hips up until you get to, so if I imagine like this, right? Knees up, flat, okay? And then you're starting with your knees, and then you're drawing your hips up until you get to at least sort of level, if not even a little bit past level. And what that's doing, and once again, you're engaging those glutes as you do that. So you're really driving up with your glutes. You're tucking that pelvis right under. And as you get to the top of that, and you really contract nice and hard, you're stretching and opening up those hip flexors as well. So that's a really good one for almost everybody, because it's a huge percentage of the population do have an anterior pelvic tilt as a result of the fact that we sit so much. So that's a really good one. Another one that you can do is laying on your back. So you can actually do this from that position. So whilst you're up in that bridge, you can do this, or you can do this when you're laying flat on your back on the foam roller. And what you want to do then is, once again, tuck your pelvis under, flatten your back against the foam roller, tuck your head back in, and then what you're going to do is you're going to bring one knee up to your chest, right, and then you're going to straighten the leg out, and then you're going to lower it down, and then you do the other one. Bring the knee up to your chest, straighten the leg out, and then lower it down. So once again, you can either do this laying on the foam roller, or you can do it up in that bridge, and that's a really active way to make your body, to train your body to engage those glutes, to engage those lower abs, to hold that pelvis in a neutral alignment whilst you're adding in quite a dynamic movement component, okay? And so that's an awesome one for really training those postural stabilizers in terms of that lower back, and really bulletproofing your lower back, really building some amazing strength and stability into that. And then the sort of the flip of that is doing donkey kicks. And so donkey kicks are essentially when you're on all fours, either on your knees or on your hands, and you're kicking one leg back. And once again, holding your pelvis in that nice neutral position, and really bringing some extension into that leg as you kick back, and then doing the same thing on the other side. Once again, building up that strength in your glutes, which is what's going to enable you to hold that pelvis in a great position. If you guys have got questions about these along the way, please make sure you're letting me know. There haven't been many questions over the last little bit, so either I've totally lost you, I've totally overwhelmed you, or you guys are just legends and it all makes sense and it's really easy. So let me know. But we're getting towards the end now. We've done the upper body, we've done the lower body, and then the final one I really want to talk about is just some of these whole body movements that you can do. You know, one of my favourite movements for posture and for maintaining good posture is planks and push-ups, right? Obviously, once again, depending on your level, you modify these, right? So planks and push-ups don't need to be done laying flat on the floor, okay? You can do, and once again, I know some of you have done this for me in various different workshops and talks I've done over the years, but you can do a push-up against the wall. In fact, I'll try and show you in a second, and I'll actually do it for you. But you can do a push-up in the wall where you're only maybe a foot, maybe even less than a foot away from the wall, and you're then practicing holding your whole body in a nice straight line as you do a push-up towards the wall and away. So I'm going to do it now, just briefly. Be right back. And so all you're doing then is this, and you're getting your posture great, you're tucking under, okay? And you're doing a push-up just against the wall. And once again, I feel like almost everybody can do a push-up in that regard. Not everybody, obviously, you know, certain disabilities and things and age and things might prevent you from doing that. But for the most part, most people can do a push-up like that against the wall. And then obviously, as you get better at it, if you get better at it, you can start to progress that, right? But most importantly, you're training your body from the hips to the knees, to the ankles, to the shoulders, to the ears, to stay in that nice straight line as you do that dynamic movement. And you can obviously do the same thing in terms of a plank. And you can do that either on your elbows or on your hands against the wall, and you can train your body to maintain that postural alignment, to tuck that pelvis under, to keep those shoulders back and down, to keep that chin tucked whilst you do that. And then if you want to, you can start moving your feet away from the wall, right? You start increasing the amount of force that's required to do that. You may then get to the point where you're doing it on a low table or a cupboard. You may get to the point where you're on the floor doing it on your knees. You may get to the point where you're doing it on your feet on the floor. You may then do it with a weight vest on, or you might do with your feet up in the air and your hands on the ground. You might even do a handstand push-up where you're totally upside down, right? There's levels that you can do all the way through, okay? And so I think a plank or a push-up, ideally both are an excellent exercise to do in order to maintain good posture. So Wendy doesn't sound like she's a big fan of planks. I know, I'm actually doing, I've been really focusing on doing incidental exercise over the last few weeks. So every day I'm not physically in my gym doing a training, I'm picking an exercise that I'm just doing in increments throughout the day when I get a break. And so I did do planks the other day and did about half a dozen 1 minute planks just at various intervals when I got a little break throughout the day, Wendy. And it was harder. I haven't done planks in a little while, and it was harder than I remembered. So I feel your pain there in terms of the planks, Wendy, but they are excellent for posture. Just checking questions here. Kim and Aaron says, oh, hang on, where'd that go? Oh, I lost it. Here we go. I'll come back down. You guys are, I'm fine now. Good, lots of guys. Kim and Aaron says, motivated me to stretch while watching and listening. That's awesome. I like that. That's really good. Ellie says, I've been doing this while watching, sweating so much in the garage in Cairns. Oh, that's just rubbing it in there. I tell you, it's been wet in Adelaide, so I'm jealous of that. That's fantastic. And I think I've got a question. Tahir says, what's a good posture if you need to work long hours in front of a laptop? How your back remain good even if you're with an IT related job? Yeah, that's a great question, Tahir. And it reminds me that the one thing I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about the desk setup is a standing desk. So the other thing that my desk can do, I have a Mobi workstation, which is wonderful, sits on top of my desk, and the whole thing can raise up. Right? So I would suggest spending at least some of your time standing if you have access to a standing desk. But if you don't, once again, it's about getting your screen up to the level of your eyes so that you can sit up nice and straight, feet flat on the floor, knees at 90 degrees, hips at 90 degrees, elbows at 90 degrees, so you want your keyboard to just be at that elbow height, and your monitor level with the middle of your eyes, okay? So, all right, great. Yeah, good. Wendy says I made her remember to do them, that's good. Question, simple exercise for removing neck pain and stretches for our necks if possible, please. Yeah, so, once again, you know, the two things that I would, really all of the things I've spoken about in terms of the upper body will be good for your neck and will help with neck pain, right? You're obviously going to be careful if you're in acute pain that you're not exacerbating it, so just take it easy, you know, dial it back a little bit. However, probably the two things, and probably the number one thing will be just laying lengthways on that foam. Well, actually, you know, the number one thing will be seeing your chiropractor. Get the neck moving better, get it adjusted, get the joints functioning well, get rid of that interference with your nervous system. That's number one. Number two would be laying on the foam roller. So once again, if you head into that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, have a look at the video that says the number one exercise I recommend in practice, and it's just literally just laying lengthways on the foam roller, tucking your chin in, and that's going to really help to stretch that neck back, take a lot of weight off of those muscles, which, as we showed with the bowling ball, the biggest problem is those muscles are holding more weight than they should because your head's coming forward. So stretching back and opening that up is probably number two. Number three would be the chin tucks we spoke about. That's going to be really beneficial for that. And then I would say number four would be getting a spiky ball and getting that into those sort of trapezius muscles, and even carefully around into the front, like don't choke yourself or cut off your blood supply, but getting around into some of those muscles, so your scalenes in the front here, and then your trapezius muscles and your levator scapula at the back there. If you can release those a little bit with a spiky ball carefully, then that's going to be beneficial as well in terms of your neck pain. So that's probably the tips I'd recommend there. But number one, get adjusted and ask your chiropractor what they think you should be doing, because they can make it specific for you as well. So we spoke about planks and push-ups. And then the other two that I want to talk about is squats and deadlifts, okay? And so squats and deadlifts, often people think of those as being really advanced movements. You know, my answer to that is that, you know, imagine a little old lady who's just got home from the shops. She's carrying 2 bags of shopping. She gets to her front door. She needs to unlock her front door. So she's going to put her 2 bags down, unlock her front door. How does she pick the bags up again, right? She has to do either a squat or a deadlift, right? And so given that all of us are going to have to do squats and deadlifts, it makes sense to me that learning how to do them right would be a really good idea. Okay, and so, and the other thing is that if you do learn how to do them right, you're constantly, every time you do it right, you're training those postural muscles to hold your body in good position. So really the key for squats and deadlifts is to maintain that alignment. Once again, not necessarily knees and ankles, but between your hips, your shoulders and the middle of your ear, keeping your back nice and straight as you do your deadlift, your back nice and straight as you do the squat. And that's a great dynamic way to really ingrain that great posture. And obviously the more you load that up, you know, the more advanced you're doing in terms of your squats and your deadlifts, and then the greater dynamic range you're giving your body in terms of your ability to maintain that posture in a huge variety of different positions and roles, right? Because if you can maintain that whilst you're deadlifting whatever heavy weight is for you, right? It might be 100 kilos, it might be 40 kilos, whatever it is. But if you can maintain that whilst you're lifting that sort of weight, then your chances of maintaining it as you go about your daily life are going to be much greater, okay? All right, I'm just having a look here. Last question, last but not least, one, posture for mobile phone usage. Mobile phone usage is a tricky one because it's really, honestly, it's hard to do it well. What I would encourage you to do is, if you're just looking at your phone, maybe put it up on your table. Try and get it up to eye height in a way that you don't have to hold it up there. If you can't put it there, then I'd certainly recommend trying to hold it up higher so that you're not hunched over so much to get to your phone and your tablet. And then second one was posture during sleep. Yeah, and once again, you know what? The answer for posture during sleep is kind of the same answer I've given you the whole way through, and that is maintaining good alignment of your body. So number one, you don't want to have too much pillow. Probably ideal is actually probably no pillow. So that then when you're laying flat on your back, your head is actually in a nice neutral position. But if you do have to have a pillow, then less is generally best, or a nice contour pillow that helps you actually retain that curvature and that shape in your neck whilst you sleep is a really good idea. But yeah, multiple pillows is probably one of the worst things, whether that's on your back, so your head's coming right forward, or whether it's on your side and it's actually angling your head, right? So when you're laying on your side, your pillow should be such that your head stays neutral with your whole body, right? If you've got too much or too little pillow, then you're actually going to be for hours at a time lying with your head on an angle, possibly with additional pressure on your shoulder, that's actually going to create a problem. So I would suggest keeping your body in a nice neutral position. Once again, have a chat to your chiropractor about a great pillow or possibly even a rolled up towel that just goes under your neck to help keep that curve in your neck. And as I said, if you're on your side, just make sure the pillow is the right height. So hopefully that answers your question. I hope that also answers your question about sleep as well, Ellie. But yeah, trying to keep everything as much as you can in a neutral position. If you find that you get uncomfortable in your lower back when you're sleeping, especially for pregnant ladies, but often for others as well, putting a pillow between your knees can be really useful if you're on your side, just in terms of keeping your pelvis a bit more neutral and stopping it from rotating quite so much as you throw your leg over as well. So you may find that adding a pillow between your legs is beneficial in terms of keeping you aligned and in good posture too. So hopefully that answers your questions about posture when you're sleeping. Thanks heaps, appreciate your time. Gave some really good tips and saved me from doing the dishes. Well, you know, when it comes time to do the dishes, Ellie, the most important thing, stay up nice and straight, right? Bend from the waist if you need to bend forward, and keep a nice straight line so you can actually be working on your posture whilst you're doing the dishes, because you're going to bend from your waist if you need to bend forward, and you're going to keep a really straight line between your hips and your shoulders and your ears, and you can actually be being really mindful, and you can actually be working on your posture whilst you're doing something like the dishes. So it's a great example of how these postural exercises can start to come into everything we do in our daily lives. And the more mindful of that you are, the more mindful about everything you do throughout the day is, the better chance you've got of maintaining great posture. So thanks, Wendy. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for coming on. This has probably been my most attended one so far. The group has certainly been growing, which is wonderful to see more and more people jumping into the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group each week. Once again, if you're not in there yet, I'll put it here one more time. The link's into the chat here. Join the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. Any questions you've got about this video or any of my other, well, all of the other videos are there in the group. Make sure you ask, and I jump in there on a regular basis and answer everybody's questions and try and help out as much as I can. And that's absolutely the best spot to find me and to ask those questions so I can help you. And the best thing about that is it means that if I answer your question, then everybody else in the group gets the benefit from it too. So make the most of the group. Please make sure you do jump in and ask questions. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys soon.